Welcome to Static Whisper Stories, where true terror is always quiet. Tonight, we discover exactly who is using your voice while you sleep. We spend a third of our lives completely paralyzed. We call it sleep, and we treat it like a sanctuary. But biologically speaking, it is the most vulnerable state a human being can enter. You close your eyes, your brain severs the connection to your muscles, and you simply trust that when you wake up, you will still be alone in your head. But what if the technology designed to keep you alive during that paralysis captures something else? Something that uses your body when you are in single quotes T. Elias Thorne didn't want a CPAP machine. He was 34, active, and otherwise healthy. But the exhaustion had become inescapable. It wasn't just tiredness. It was a crushing, heavy fog that sat behind his eyes all day. His smartwatch told the story first. His blood oxygen was plummeting into the low 80s every single night. It was severe obstructive sleep apnea. Dozens of times an hour, Elias was silently suffocating. His brain would panic, violently jumpstart his heart, and wake him up just enough to take a ragged breath before pulling him back under. He had no memory of it. He just knew he was dying slowly. His doctor prescribed the Ethers Pro, a top-of-the-line, auto-adjusting CPAP machine. It was a sleek, matte black device, entirely digital. No dials, no buttons. Just a glowing touchscreen and a Wi-Fi connection that sensed his respiratory data directly to a cloud server. And to an app on his phone. The mechanics are simple. The machine monitors the resistance in your airway. If it senses a collapse, it gently increases the air pressure. To do this perfectly, the Ethers Pro utilizes an acoustic diagnostic microphone. It listens. It listens to the airflow, to the exact frequency of the user's breathing, analyzing the micro-vibrations of the throat to predict an apnea event before it even happens. For the first 2 weeks, it was a miracle. Elias woke up feeling sharp, alive, and rested. Every morning, he'd open the Ethers app on his phone and look at his sleep score. 98%. 99%. A perfect, uninterrupted 8 hours. But on the 17th day, the score was 74%. Elias frowned at his phone screen over his morning coffee. The app didn't log an apnea event. It didn't log a mask leak. Under the breakdown of the night's data, there was a new, strange metric flagged in yellow: acoustic interference. The machine had detected irregular noise patterns between 3:12 a.m. and 4:05 a.m. Interrupting its pressure algorithms. Elias assumed it was the ambient noise. Maybe a neighbor's dog, maybe a garbage truck outside his suburban window. He adjusted the acoustic sensitivity in the app settings, turning it down, and went to work. The next morning, his score was 61%. Acoustic interference, 2 hours, 14 minutes. Elias lived alone. His bedroom was at the back of the house, facing a dense tree line. There was no traffic, no dogs. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He lay there in the dark, the silicone mask strapped to his face, listening to the rhythmic, synthetic whoosh of the air pressure. He waited for a sound. For hours, he stared at the ceiling. Nothing. just the quiet hum of his refrigerator downstairs. Eventually, the exhaustion won. He slipped into a deep, paralyzed REM state. He woke up with a headache, a deep, throbbing ache at the base of his skull, and a strange, raw feeling in the back of his throat, like he had been shouting for hours. He reached for his phone. Sleep score, 42%. Acoustic interference, 4 hours, 8 minutes. Elias didn't just look at the app this time. He logged into the Ethos patient portal on his laptop to view the raw data. There, hidden in the diagnostic tabs meant only for respiratory therapists, was an audio log. The machine kept 30-second cache files of the acoustic anomalies to help technicians diagnose mechanical faults. Elias put on his noise-canceling headphones. He clicked the first audio file, time-stamped 3:14 a.m. At first, it was just the heavy, rhythmic breathing, the whoosh of the machine. Then, underneath the air pressure, a wet, clicking sound, like tongue against teeth. Elias froze. He turned the volume all the way up. It wasn't ambient noise. It was close. It was right inside the mask. He played the next file. 3:45 a.m. A low, rhythmic murmur. It wasn't snoring. The cadence was intentional. It had syllables, pauses. He was sleep-talking. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. That explained the raw throat. He must be having stress dreams, muttering into the pressurized mask, confusing the machine's acoustic sensors. To be sure. He downloaded the audio files onto a USB drive and scheduled a telehealth appointment with his sleep specialist, Dr. Elias, for that afternoon. Dr. Elias was a pragmatic man. He looked over the charts on his shared screen, adjusting his glasses. Sleep talking is a common parasomnia, Elias, the doctor said, his voice tinny through the laptop speakers. The positive airway pressure can dry out your vocal cords, which explains the sore throat. Let's isolate the acoustic tracks. I can run it through our clinical software to filter out the machine's airflow noise. We'll see exactly what kind of vocalizations you're making. On Elias's screen, he watched the doctor drag the audio file into a specialized diagnostic tool. The doctor clicked play. With the whoosh of the air removed, the room filled with the sound of the bedroom in the dead of night. Then, a voice. It was Elias's voice, but deeply distorted. The pitch was dragged down, thick and guttural, vibrating with a heavy, unnatural weight. It is thin here. The voice dragged out, struggling against the forced air of the machine. Very thin. Elias felt a cold spike of adrenaline hit his stomach. Is that me? He asked the doctor. Dr. Elias frowned, leaning closer to his monitor. The biometric signature matches your vocal tract, yes. Your vocal folds are vibrating. But Elias, look at the waveform. The doctor pointed his cursor at the screen. You aren't just talking. The doctor highlighted a second set of audio waves on the screen. There's a secondary acoustic signature. It's faint, but your machine picked it up. Dr. Elias amplified the secondary track. It was a whisper, but it wasn't coming from inside the mask. It lacked the digital compression of the CPAP tube. It was coming from the room. From the foot of Elias's bed, the audio played back. clean and terrifyingly clear. Elias's guttural, sleep-paralyzed voice. They are thin here. Then the second voice. A soft, dry, almost affectionate whisper from the darkness of the bedroom. I know. I'm waiting. Keep the door open. Elias stared at the screen. The blood drained from his face. He lived alone. The doors were locked. The alarm was set. Dr. Elias was silent on the video call. He slowly took off his glasses. Elias, the doctor said softly, are you sure there is no one else in the house with you? Elias ended the call with Dr. Elias. The silence of his home rushed back in, louder than before. He didn't believe in the supernatural. He was a software developer. He dealt in code, logic, and binary absolutes. Ghosts didn't exist, but audio data didn't lie. Something had recorded that second voice. Asterisk, if there was an intruder in his house, he needed proof. If it was a glitch in the machine's acoustic software, a bleeding of radio frequencies, or a strange echo of his own voice bouncing off the walls, he needed to see it happen. That afternoon, Elias drove to an electronics store. He bought a high-definition, infrared night vision camera and a parabolic, directional microphone, the kind used by wildlife documentarians to capture sound from hundreds of feet away. He mounted the camera on his dresser, pointing it directly at the bed. He angled the microphone to focus exclusively on the empty space at the foot of his mattress. Tonight, he wouldn't just rely on the CPAP machine's algorithms. He would have eyes in the dark dot at 11 p.m. Elias strapped the silicone mask to his face. The Ethers Pro hummed to life, forcing a continuous stream of room-temperature air down his throat. He tried to stay awake. He kept his eyes fixed on the red recording light of the camera across the room. But the human body is a machine of habit. The rhythmic pressure of the CPAP was a biological trigger. His brain recognized the steady flow of oxygen, signaled safety, and began initiating the sleep sequence. He entered REM sleep at 1:42 a.m. Atonia took over. His skeletal muscles were chemically locked. He was entirely paralyzed, a prisoner in his own flesh, kept alive by the machine pumping air into his lungs. At 3 a.m. Elias's eyes snapped open beneath his closed lids. He was awake, but his brain hadn't flipped the switch to release his muscles. Sleep paralysis. He couldn't move his arms. He couldn't turn his head. He could only stare straight up at the ceiling, feeling the forced air rushing into his nose and mouth. Then he felt it. The mattress depressed slightly at the foot of the bed. Just an inch. The unmistakable weight of someone sitting down. Elias's amygdala, the fear center of his brain, screamed in primal terror. His heart rate spiked, pounding violently against his ribs. He tried to thrash, tried to rip the mask off his face, but his limbs were dead weight. He heard a sound, not from the machine, from the foot of the bed. A soft, wet inhalation. And then Elias felt his own throat move. Without his permission, his vocal cords contracted. The air from the machine was pushed through them, creating a deep, resonant vibration that rattled his skull. He was speaking, but he wasn't choosing the words. His body was being driven like a stolen car, A guttural, distorted sound pushed past his lips and into the mask. "They can't see you?" Elias's mouth articulated. From the darkness at his feet, the second voice whispered back, entirely audible without a microphone. It sounded like dry leaves dragging across concrete. "I know. The air is so cold here. Keep breathing for me." Elias's vision blurred with tears of pure, helpless panic. He lay there, trapped inside his own skull, forced to host a conversation he couldn't stop, until exhaustion dragged him back into unconsciousness at dawn. Morning light broke through the blinds. Elias woke up gasping, tearing the mask off his face. The silicone left deep red welts on his cheeks. His throat felt like it had been filled with broken glass. He didn't check the CPAP app. He didn't care about his sleep score. He lunged for the camera, pulled the SD card, and slammed it into his laptop. His hands shook violently as he opened the video file. He scrubbed through the footage. 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Nothing but the eerie green and white night vision of him sleeping, perfectly still. Then, 3:12 a.m., Elias hit play. On the video, Elias watched his own body go rigid. His eyes darted frantically under his eyelids. Then he saw the mattress compress. The fabric of the blanket pulled tight, outlining the shape of something heavy sitting at the edge of his bed. But the space above the blanket was entirely empty. But the camera was internal. AI, the facial recognition software, designed to keep subjects in focus, was locking on to something. A yellow targeting box hovered in the thin air, shifting slightly, as if whatever was sitting there was swaying back and forth. The audio on the video feed kicked in. Elias watched his own jaw drop open slightly beneath the transparent CPAP mask. His throat pulsed. The deep, distorted voice rumbled from his lips. "They can't see you." Then the second voice answered. But what Elias saw on the screen made his blood run completely cold. The second voice, a dry, raspy whisper, wasn't coming from the empty space at the foot of the bed. He zoomed in on his own face on the laptop screen. He slowed the footage down to half speed. The second voice was coming from him. Two, while his primary vocal cords produced the deep, guttural tone. His false vocal folds, the thick membranes higher up in the throat, were simultaneously vibrating at a completely different frequency. He was producing both voices at exactly the same time. A biological impossibility for an untrained human. His body was acting as a two-way radio. He was the speaker, and he was the receiver. On the video, the yellow autofocus box at the foot of the bed slowly leaned forward. The depression in the mattress moved closer to his paralyzed legs. Elias slammed the laptop shut. The room was perfectly silent, but he knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that he was no longer alone in the house. Elias did what any rational human being would do. He unplugged the Aetherus Pro. He ripped the silicone tube from the base, shoved the machine into its travel case, and locked it inside his hallway closet. He didn't care about the sleep score. He didn't care about the crushing exhaustion that would follow the next day. He would rather endure the silent suffocation of his apnea than ever put that mask on his face again. He spent the day drinking black coffee, keeping all the lights on, and researching polyphonic vocal manifestations, trying desperately to find a medical excuse for what he had seen. But there was none. By 11 p.m., his body was failing. The sleep deprivation was causing micro-hallucinations. Shadows in the corners of his vision seemed to stretch and bend. He didn't mean to fall asleep, but biology always wins. Elias slipped into unconsciousness on the living room couch, and almost immediately, without the forced air of the CPAP machine, his airway collapsed. Inside his throat, the soft tissue sealed shut like a vacuum. No oxygen in, no carbon dioxide out. 1 minute passed. His blood oxygen dropped to 85%. 2 minutes passed. 78%. At 2.5 minutes, Elias's brain triggered the emergency response. Adrenaline flooded his system. He woke up. Or rather, his mind woke up, but he was deep in the grip of sleep paralysis. He was lying on his back in the pitch-black living room, staring at the ceiling, utterly unable to move. And he couldn't breathe. His lungs screamed for air, his chest convulsing invisibly under his shirt, but his throat was locked tight. He was suffocating. The edges of his vision began to tunnel into blackness. He was going to die right there on the couch. Then he heard the closet door in the hallway click open. Footsteps, soft, heavy depressions on the hardwood floor. Moving from the hallway into the living room, Elias's eyes darted wildly in the dark, tears streaming down his paralyzed face. The air in the room grew freezing cold. A shadow leaned over him, blocking out the faint ambient light from the window. It had no face, just a heavy, suffocating mass. He felt cold. Unseen hands press against his cheeks. And then he felt the silicone mask being strapped over his nose and mouth. The Ethers Pro hummed to life. But it wasn't plugged into the wall. It was running on its internal backup battery. A massive rush of pressurized air blasted down Elias's throat, forcing the collapsed tissue open. Oxygen flooded his dying lungs. He took a massive, shuddering breath, his chest heaving. He was alive, but the heavy mass was still leaning over him. The machine's airflow shifted, increasing its pressure. And just like the night before, Elias felt his vocal cords being hijacked. The muscles in his neck pulled taut against his will. But this time, there was no conversation. His false vocal cords vibrated first, producing the raspy, dry whisper that echoed inside the plastic mask. You need the air to live. Then, his primary vocal cords vibrated, producing the deep, guttural tone. And I need your voice to speak. Elias realized the horrifying truth as the paralysis slowly began to fade. It wasn't trying to hurt him. It was saving him. It needed a host, a biological anchor. And the CPAP machine was the bridge. Elias Thorne is still alive today. He never misses a night of therapy. He can't. If he takes the mask off, his body will suffocate. So every night, he straps himself in. He closes his eyes. He lets the machine pump air into his lungs. And he waits for the paralysis to set in. He lies awake in the dark, a prisoner in his own bed, listening to his own mouth whisper secrets to the dark for 8 uninterrupted hours, waiting for the morning light to set him free. Sleep tight. And if you wake up feeling a little out of breath, maybe don't check your audio logs.